What's up, everybody? It's Chad. I'm back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Today, I have Duke Rodriguez with me as my guest. Thank you for joining me, Duke.
No problem, Chad.
I'm glad you're able to join me. It's kind of a last minute. You're over in Santa Fe you just got done with another interview too. So you're jumping around today. So I appreciate you joining me and everything. Today, it's going to be a little bit of a different thing on the show. Usually we really dive in with the guests, but Duke and I actually have a lot of, things to share with you guys and kind of some updates. So I want to use this time to really, that Duke has to kind of update us all on everything that's going on. So I appreciate you joining me, Duke. But, for everybody that's watching who doesn't know, mind introducing yourself?
My name is Duke Rodriguez. I am the CEO president of Ultra Health. We probably have at this point as many locations as anybody else. And, we've been there since the medical days and obviously now living through what is supposed to be our happy place, but has turned out to be the rec program.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that we have to fix and everything for sure. And I've known Duke for almost 10 years now, huh? From the medical days, we used to spar a lot during the medical days and everything. And we still have some interesting conversations sometimes. And we may not always agree. But I really do appreciate that, you keep it respectful, and all that. And, we have had some heated ones in the past and everything, but usually at the end, we're either laughing or kind of like, oh, okay.
Life
So,
goes on, Chad. Life goes on.
of course. Yeah. Like I don't hate you at all. You're always honest with me. So, I always appreciate that. So, but yeah, so, you started in the medical days, and I'm always kind of curious, where did like your cannabis like things start with you? I've never wondered this. I just wanted to get a couple questions out the way before we get to the updates.
It might surprise people that it actually started because I was big into healthcare.
Hmm.
And most people know me back in the day as the loveless person. I used to run the hospital, the clinic, the group practice. And then for a while, I was the cabinet secretary for New Mexico, doing primarily its healthcare related activities, including Medicaid.
Yeah.
So I have a long history there. And then a couple came to me from Silver City. They had some licenses in Arizona. They said, can I help them? I did. And from that introduction, I looked over to my home state of New Mexico and said, now that's a place you really want to do cannabis right. And that's where it came from.
Nice. Yeah. And, I kind of, wondered that myself too, and if you have told me in the past, my apologies, but, for at least the listening purposes, at least they get that portion too, get because there's certain people from out of state that listen to the podcast too, especially the ones from Texas. And, if they're curious, they're probably going to run into an Ultra Health. They're all over the state. Like you probably said before, in the intro and everything. So they're most likely going to run into it, and might as well, get a little bit of intro into yourself too. So I appreciate that. Great. Yeah. So is there anything else you want to share with the guests and everything before we like move on to like the next series of topics? Because the reason why I'm keeping this part so short is because we have a lot to talk about.
No, go ahead. Feel free to start.
All right, cool. So we're going to talk about the New Mexico legislature, guys. And this episode might be a little bit longer, might be shorter, but there's a lot of stuff that we have to go through. So as you guys know, I was up there in Santa Fe for the Cruces Day thing. I went up on Saturday. Everything happened like pretty much Saturday, Sunday, but Mondays when they had us go to the legislature thing. But we also happened to have the HB 10 had its committee hearing that day. I did show up to that. I had a couple people with me. I did testify. There's things in the bill that I'm, of course, worried about. No bill is perfect, including this one. There's a couple of things that, I think felt like clarified. But at the end of the day, I'm still kind of worried. Duke, what's your take on HB 10? If you guys don't know what HB 10 is, it's that enforcement bill where they're going to try to pretty much add a cannabis police force to the industry side.
I've got real mixed views about House Bill 10. Its whole purpose is to give CCD, RLD, police powers, whatever that might seem. It's sponsored by the speaker and a few other key legislators. So you got to be careful about being negative about it because you don't want to create enemies either.
Yeah.
But from the industry standpoint, the way I see it, if you're really honest about it, I think it's kind of silly to create a police force within CCD RLD. If policing needs to occur, well, we've got law enforcement. I mean, why introduce a new cast of characters to start doing police activities? Because, good intentions, we all know, Chad, after this many years, good intentions can go sideways very quickly.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I cautioned them as well while I was in the committee, sitting there, and making my testimony is the fact that we have to do this carefully and we have to do this right, because if not, we're going to lose a lot of trust within the industry who already doesn't trust its own government. That we trust it enough to get our license, but at the same time, we don't trust them enough to make certain decisions or to go further on certain things. And that's why it's so hard to get people to show up to these things sometimes, because they don't trust the government at all. Like, oh, why do they do it at this time and this and that? But some of it also comes from misunderstandings too. And before we move on with the bill, I want to clarify with everybody that the bill only passed a committee, didn't pass all both chambers and get signed or anything. It's not law. So what this means is it just goes to the next committee that it's in. This one has two, then it goes to the House floor, and then it goes to the Senate. Does the same thing, rinse, lather, repeat in that sense. So it still has a long way. It's a very long process. Like about passing bills isn't easy, and it's also a very weird kind of process too. So just because this passed the committee does not mean that the governor signed it. There was some misleading information, unfortunately, going out that people said that this is law. The governor signed it and all this other mess and stuff like that. I just want to clarify before we talked about any other bills on here too, is that none of these bills have passed. None of them have become law. This is the only one that's seen light of day from a committee standpoint. The rest are still waiting to see their day in committee. So we'll see what happens. But at the time of right now, when we're recording this, it passed that one committee, and that's it so far. It could die from now, from here to then. So yeah, I mean, I'm just real concerned about it. Like in the bill, yeah, that they're just saying, we're just giving them the same authority that regular police officers have. And I'm like, yeah, but that kind of feels like a problem. You know what I mean? Because they tend to not understand cannabis. Like enforcement, yes, but are these police officers essentially going to be further trained on cannabis? And I was kind of told afterwards by Todd Stevens that they would be more or less in the role of at the discretion of the CCD kind of thing. But I'm like, well, then we run into the issue of people can be targeted again, and I brought that issue up too. So I mean, do you kind of feel that could be kind of where we're going to with it as well, like just people getting targeted, maybe a low hanging fruit thing, because we're seeing that now, like low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I understand that the folks from the CCD, RLD have good intentions, but
Yeah,
come on, we've got to look at their track record. I don't think it's been tremendously positive for the industry.
yeah,
Uh, we have an oversaturated market that is being overtaken by an illicit market. So all of a sudden, to throw a band-aid on this thing and give 6, 7, 8 police officers to CCD, RLD, I'm not sure that really will gain us much more than what we already have. So you got to be suspicious. I mean,
yeah.
anytime you add another team of kind of narrow-minded individuals to kind of focus on cannabis, I'm not sure the outcome is going to be necessarily positive. It makes it like you. It makes me nervous, Chad.
Yeah, and when we it's just hard. I want enforcement. I want a good enforced industry. I want people to be able to trust it. But at the same time, we have to be able to trust our own government. And like you said, the track record, it hasn't been very good. We
And
have
wouldn't you
these.
get more enforcement up front, Chad, if they did a pre-inspection before licensure instead of
Yeah.
trying to put it on the back end? The problems are out there, and now they're trying to say, okay, we want to stick the genie back in the bottle. That's not going to work real well.
No, it's not. And you and I are actually on the same, on the same page when it comes to, keeping licensing open. Because everyone decided to do this. It was everyone's choice. No one forced anybody to get a license. No one's forced to be here.
Correct.
If you want to get out, you can get out right now. So this is a competition. May the best one win at the end of the day. There's going to be different levels of this. There's going to be different things going on. And if you are here at the end of the day, I will shake your hand and say congratulations, regardless of who it is. You know what I mean? But we're going to lose people on the way, and that's the sad part. And it's like I told someone the other day, it's like National Geographics. We're like National Geographics photographers. We just have to let the lion eat the baby chick sometimes, because that's just the way it goes. And some of the baby chicks will survive to go and reproduce another day, but ah, and it's unfortunate that some people have been taken out by the issues that we have with the enforcement and these people not doing it the right way. But that's not our fault, and we shouldn't pay the price for it either. It's better for us to fix these issues And it's not one way to fix it either. And I'm sure you can agree with that. There's several things we're going to need to do to kind of get this hammered down. Enforcement's only one key thing. Like one simple thing is inspecting before they open. Now, I was told about that too from Todd from CCD. Is that how are we going to inspect a location if there's no cannabis there? Et cetera, et cetera. And I get that argument, but I think there's something that we can do instead of just saying, well, nothing we can do, just roll over and die. I mean, what do you think about that? Especially with the pre-inspection before opening.
You know, the thing that we all want, and you said it well, Chad, is everybody just wants a level playing field. That's all we
Yeah,
want. Give us a fair shot to get that golden ring. Give us a fair shot to compete with the illicit market. Just give us a fair, even-handed approach. But equally important, stay out of our way. Don't
yeah,
create so many rules, and don't give us make us print a label that is 6 inches, 10 inches, 14 inches long. We don't need that.
yeah,
Let us compete, and don't overtax us. Don't overregulate us. And now, when you tell me that someone wants to give us a police force dedicated to getting us what? To behave better? No, go target the illicit operators, not us. If you
yeah.
gave if you had a task force of police officers and you said, okay, we're going to give it to you, yeah, but let's make agreed that you go after the unlicensed operators, not the licensed guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of my concern too. And even in there, there's an area that anybody that doesn't follow the CRA could be under this, and that means patients and consumers too. Now, don't get me wrong; they could be prosecuted now as is if they break the law. But this is actually going specifically within that parameter, and that could get messy. Where you see patients and just regular consumers targeted. I don't want to see that because there's certain parts of the state, and you and I know very well, that are very conservative and don't like cannabis very much. And the moment that they can get their claws on some funding on something like this, they're going to go full fledged reefer madness. And that scares the shit out of me because we're both from the same area originally. So you and I both know how conservative it is in that area of the state and how bad it gets. So I mean, that kind of really scares the crap out of me.
But
Especially for the patients.
if you don't mind me interrupting, don't
No.
you worry about, I mean, picture this. We compete with each other. The
Mhm.
micros compete with the biggers, and the biggers compete with the middles, and it's all over the board. That's enough competition, right?
Yeah.
Now we got the illicit market. Now we got these hemp derived products. Why are you now getting a police force targeted on us? If
Yeah.
Todd and others would guarantee they would not focus on the regulated market, I'd say, fine. Then I feel like it'll be more equal. But I can
Yeah.
bet you dollars to donuts, you give them the staff and they're going to focus on just the licensees.
And that's kind of my fear too. And I think that's the industry's fear. And I've heard other people say, well, why can't we rely on our current police force to do this, because all they're doing is just enforcing the law that's already there and written.
Right.
And why can't they do this and that? And to be honest, I'm not a cop and I'm not a lawyer, but to me, I feel like there's more that we could do versus what we're doing now, and we don't have to go as extreme because we are overregulated as an industry, even here in New Mexico. And as an industry wide, we're going to have to figure that out one day because the regulations on this are going to have to loosen up if we're going to, actually survive, because it's a little ridiculous. You and I could probably agree on that one because the tiny labels and old people can't even read them. I'm almost in my 40s, and even I'm having to, kind of look at them a little bit closer. It's a little ridiculous, yeah. And some of those labels cost money, to print themselves. Some people pay a company to get them printed out, from some process or something like that. So I mean, it adds cost, and we do that. We just start making the illicit market look even prettier. And I'm glad that they're trying to tackle the tax thing. And we'll talk about that tax bill here in a little bit. I'm glad that they're trying to tackle that. But like we're talking about, there's going to be more that needs to happen, and I really hope that they just go after the illicit guys because they are the issue. Because I've ran into, I remember actually when we first passed legalization, you and I remember clearly that illegal dispensary here in Las Cruces, because I remember you called me on it, and
Oh,
the one that with the stickers and stuff. We had activity like that going on, and that doesn't help or make it look good. And there was a couple other here in town that were doing the same thing, and they were buying BioTrack stuff. Like, and when I try to go and try to do business with them because I thought they were licensed, we couldn't find them in BioTrack or anything like that. But they had licensed product on their shelf, so it tells me that there's businesses doing business with them, and that shouldn't have been happening from the get. but it was, and there was nobody doing anything. And then now it's like, well, look at the marijuanas, when most of the police force was on board when all of this first, was passed. And now we're kind of getting this, okay, they're making a lot of money. Now maybe we can benefit from it. I'm not too sure. But this could be a very slippery slope. And I've said that many times. We have to do this very carefully, and we have to think about this a lot, because this can go bad very quickly for everybody. And then we can see an industry that's already trying to stabilize itself and figure itself out could go haywire in another direction. So, but yeah, that's pretty much my take on the HB10 one for it. I mean, do you have anything else for the enforcement bill, Duke?
The only thing I would add to what you said was, your listeners need to realize HB 10 is only at a bill standpoint in one committee. And if
Yeah.
you want to look at it as a kind of like a sporting event, and they got a home field review. That's all it was. It was
Mhm.
a House bill listened to in a House committee. I mean, the real test is when it crosses over to the Senate. And we all
Mhm.
remember that it has to cross the Senate Judiciary Committee. And you've got there the powerful Senator Cervantes. And he said
Yes.
over and over, don't pass bills that you're not going to enforce. So I think they're going to have a difficult journey. And I would say the prospects of it surviving and getting to the governor's desk is not more than 50-50.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it has a chance of clearing the House, but once it gets to the Senate, I think it's going to be a total different story for the same reasons. And I've spoken about Senator Cervantes many times and the Senate Judiciary many times on the show, because it's probably one of the hardest committees to get through in the New Mexico legislature. Like,
Absolutely.
Senator Cervantes is a no fuck around kind of guy. And he will literally read a bill from the very beginning title to the very end, and he will pick it apart like a raven, just pick it apart.
A
And
little
he hates the way that we went about cannabis.
He has fought other state agencies. The RLD-CCD's attempt to get a police force is not the first time we've ever seen that. It's
Yeah.
happened with other agencies, and he has not allowed it to happen. So if he stays true to history, I think he's going to put up strong opposition to this.
I do too. And like we said, that Senate judiciary can be brutal. I've seen bills go in there that look promising, and they just get just murked, just no chance. I'm surprised the cannabis bills for legalization made it out of his committee, because I was watching them and it was brutal. He said many times, "I think this is a mistake. I think the way that we're doing this is wrong." Whatever. He even says that to this day. Every time he has a chance, he lets us know. He probably will again. But yeah, I think once it gets to his judiciary, there's a chance it might fail. Just for the sole fact of the things that you said. He said before he really doesn't like this, and he's the grim reaper of a lot of bills, in our legislature. So I mean, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's needed. But it's a double edged sword and things like this. But yeah, that's what I want to let you guys know too. Also, before we move on, when a bill does pass both the House and the Senate, it goes to the governor, and she does have a chance to not sign it, so she can veto it or pocket veto it. If she vetoes it, though, remember I've told you guys this, she actually has to put a reason why she vetoes it. If not, it becomes law. And I'm sure you remember that, Duke, when it happened under Martinez a couple times.
Oh,
They didn't let her forget that. So keep that in mind. There's still, like we said, it's a huge, crazy process, and even the governor, she's the last say in it, and it can still be vetoed at the end of the day, even if it makes it all the way through. So we'll see what happens. She is, however, very supportive of this bill. When I talked to her on Sunday, she actually asked me, "What does the industry think of it?" I told her it's mixed feelings. Because it is. There's some people that think it's the best thing, and it's Jesus walking on water, and other people think it's the Antichrist. So it's kind of mixed feelings. Of course, there's people in the middle, but there's mixed feelings all around with it. I'm more of the mixed feelings group too. I'm with you on that, Duke, because this is something that scares the shit out of me. Cannabis has had a stigma for too damn long, and we have to do this right. We have to get rid of the right people and not just go after everybody. Like that scares me. So that's all I have for HB 10. Let's move on to one of the other bills. I got a couple here to talk about, and Duke, I really want your point of view on these, and got a couple other topics I want to talk to you at the end too. And like I was talking to you earlier, I was like, oh man, if you know about this one, I really want to hear about it. So I got something at the end I really want to talk to you guys about. So HB 112. Now this is license changes This one's scheduled actually for February 7th. This is the most recent one that actually has a committee date. I saw it on the committee schedule when I was looking today. So it looks like it's going to be February 7th. It's in the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee. I think it's going to start at 1:30. Keep in mind, these can and will change. So what it says today may not be the same thing 20 minutes from now. So I'll try to keep you guys updated if something changes. Just know Simper Gumby, because shit happens. I'm sure, Duke, you've known, if you want to go to committee, stuff's changing. It's like, come on. So it's going to be in that committee. It'll be heard on the 7th again. So if you all are in Albuquerque or in Santa Fe, you can go, say your piece at the committee. That'd be great. From my understanding, from what I read in this bill, and Duke, please chime in too at any point. It's pretty much just tightening up language when it comes to the background check, correct?
Correct. It has to do with getting that federal background check from the Fed. They want to see language in our act that is compatible to their act before they'll release any information.
Yeah, and that's been the issue this whole time. And like, there's a lot of people saying, no, there's people that shouldn't be in the industry getting in, and I agree. There does need to be a background check in that sense. We do allow people in the state with cannabis charges, nonviolent and stuff like that, and other charges, which is more lenient than in a lot of other states. However, you still need that background check. What if you're a terrorist? Just for an example, what if you're on the terrorist watch list and we don't know? Like, you shouldn't be operating here. Sorry. We just ran into that issue in Estancia with that illegal farm where they had the illegal Chinese migrants working there and in slave-like conditions. So, that's something that could have been avoided a little bit better if all of these issues that Duke and I have been talking about were hammered out in the beginning. But nothing's perfect, and we're trying to fix it now. But God, it's going to be a long fucking ride. But this one right here, it's pretty cut and dry. I think it's only like 2 or 3 pages long. It's kind of a short bill. And to me, it's a no-brainer. What's your thoughts about this one actually passing?
I agree with you. It's a no-brainer. It fixes language. It's a technical fix. If anything, they've gotten the feds to kind of sign off, what do you need to see? And that paragraph is in this document. And I think it, no harm, no foul.
I do too. I'm with you on that. And I think this will just strengthen our industry more. If we start just doing the background checks there. So I'm with you on that, and it's something that should have been happening the whole time anyway. But it is what it is. It's getting fixed now. Moving on to the next bill, I want to talk about HB 230. Now, this one actually has a mirror bill in the Senate as SB 269. So what that means is they're pretty much the exact same bill, but they're introduced in 2 different houses. So one's in the House, one's in the Senate. And the reason why they do that is it gives the bill more chances of passing. Because if something goes wrong in one area, it has a chance in the other, et cetera, or they have a chance to fix what was wrong in that one committee or that one part of the chamber into the other. So it's pretty much throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's what's happened many times through the state, and it's very common. So you're probably going to see that a lot this legislative session. So you'll be seeing me posting 2 different ones with the HB and SB with 2 different numbers. They're probably the same exact bill, different representatives, same language. All right, so we got that out the way. I know it's a little confusing. I don't want anybody getting any kind of ideas in their head or something like that they're pulling some shady stuff. This is very common stuff. Now this one is testing of cannabis patients. This one's in the House Health and Human Services, which I feel like it should be. That makes sense. And this bill is great because this is something that was in the medical cannabis changes, Duke. I think you remember from 2018, but it wasn't very strong. The language wasn't strong enough. And a lot of patients were discriminated against when it came to jobs and drug testing like that. I feel like the language in here really helps. It strengthens it, but I feel eventually we'll have to move this language over into the regular consumer too. What do you think?
So remind me, what is the core purpose of this bill?
So this one is for drug testing for cannabis patients, for medical cannabis patients, like where your job and if they can fire you for
employer drug testing.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, the title of the bill is a little misleading, I know. But yeah, this one pretty much essentially fixes that language in the Linen Air and Compassionate Use Act when they changed it in 2018 that gave us work protections. This pretty much fixes that language because there was a lot of employers saying, well, we don't know if they're impaired or how to whatever impaired. And this in the language of the bill says, well, it's up to you to figure out how to be, if they're impaired, but we'll give you the tools to figure that out. And no metabolites of THC in the system constitutes as someone being high. And I think that's great, because that's true.
I'm with you. It's another one of these technical fixes. I will add to your comment though, Chad, about the a House version, a Senate version. The risk we run with that
Mhm.
is if any of the bodies then amend it, then we got what's called a reconciliation. And so we got to bring the two together and literally send the reconciled version back to both houses and make them vote again. So
Yeah, that is
in
true.
some ways, it's a good thing to have separate bills. It gives you, like you said, you got more opportunity, but it also kind of mucks up things in a point that you might not beat the clock and be out in 60 days. That's a challenge both ways.
Yeah, and then you usually see them merging at some point anyway
There
to
you
kind
go.
of avoid that situation too. Yeah, so the Duke is completely right. Yes, thank you for clarifying that too, because that is a very important part of the process. Is yes, once it changes like that, then you get this whole murky water, and then at some point it does make more sense to merge them. So that's what probably what we'll see with this bill is either one will either drop off completely or they'll just end up merging. Hopefully, because something like this does need to pass. So I would recommend if you guys are listening to contact your representatives and let them know that this bill does need to pass. And to be honest, I don't see a reason of it failing either.
100% agree.
Yeah. Awesome. So moving on, we're going to go to the next one, and we got a couple left here and a couple conversations too that go along with it. To SB 89. Now, this is the removal of the incremental tax. This one's actually very, very important. As short of a bill it is, and as little language as it is in the bill, it does a lot. It does actually a huge things. And what this does is it stops the increase of tax from essentially 20%, 21% and keeping it at 20. Right now, we're at 12% tax, and it's due to go up to 13% this year unless this bill passes. And then actually, every year after this year, it goes up 1% until 2030 when it'll be at its final, I believe, like almost 18% or something like that. So this will keep it at 12%, which will be total of 20% tax. So we'll stay at that for however long. I think we do need to actually go down on it one day. I feel we're at a very high threshold in New Mexico. If we go any higher on the taxes, the traditional market will just kind of take over in that sense because New Mexicans already having a hard time affording that tax. I feel any higher will kind of just be out of their budget. Even though it's a 1%, it adds up.
Well, my comment to you on that, Chad, is of course nobody wants to see the accelerator. Nobody
Yep.
wants to go from 12 to 13. But why don't we open up the issue again is why are you taxing us anyway? Why are
Mhm.
you putting 12 points on here? We already pay gross receipts tax. If you go
Yeah.
buy your prescription drug, you pay, hey, well, if it's medical, you don't pay any sales tax. But if it's ours, you pay gross receipts tax and the cannabis excise tax. Why don't we
Yeah.
just admit that that was a punitive penalty to keep us in line? Now that everybody realizes we're here, we're not going away, the industry's not going to blow away. It's not filled with criminals unless you guys let it be filled with criminals. But you the regulator. But why can't this be a window of opportunity to say just remove the cannabis excise tax? Why does it have to be 13? Heck, why does it have to be 12, 10, 9? Why don't we go backwards? So yes, I think it's cute, and that's the way, not to offend the sponsor. It's cute that you're not going to put the accelerator clause in there, but let's talk about rolling it back.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I've been a huge proponent of bringing this tax backwards versus bringing it up or keeping it the same, because it just doesn't make any sense to penalize us like this. We haven't done anything. It was illegal for the wrong reason in the first place. We're trying to do the right thing. We will pay our taxes happily, but please, don't overly overtax us, especially in a state like New Mexico that's very poor. We're just barely getting on our feet here, the residents wise. The state may have a surplus of money, but not the residents. The
Correct.
residents are still hurting a lot. And that's what I kept hearing in the Santa Fe. It was like, oh, the state's got a surplus. The state's got a surplus. So I was like, I can use some of that surplus, homie.
I tell you, Chad, that is one of the more annoying things for me is we keep talking about how well, oh, we've got, an $800 million of new dollars. And it's like, really? You keep talking about it, but it doesn't go to the average person. The average person sees egg prices, gas prices, rent, insurance. Then why are we charging them this cannabis excise tax? I know what people think, oh, it's wrong for us to ask. I'm saying, no, it's not wrong. I mean, you
Yeah.
need to give us some relief. Take that
Yeah.
damn tax away.
I agree, because it's already it is taxed. We pay the excise on it. Of course, medical patients in New Mexico don't pay medical cannabis taxes. Actually, thanks to one of your lawsuits back in the day. That actually went to Supreme Court, I believe, right? New Mexico Supreme Court,
It
state
did,
Supreme
yes.
Court. Yes. And they ruled cannabis in New Mexico is a medicine and, doesn't get taxed. So there's that. And I keep telling people to get their damn medical card too, stop paying taxes. That is like the way that you can stop paying taxes right now is getting your medical cannabis card.
Do you know, Chad, we've lost 55,000 cardholders?
I do. I try to keep a tab on the numbers, and yeah, I predicted more than that when we first went legal because I knew it was going to happen. But it's still alarming to see that number, and it seems like it's kind of stabled out, like stopped going down as much. But we'll see how long that lasts. Usually in New Mexico, we have waves, just like anything, and we'll see what happens. I hope the numbers go back up. There's a lot of people pushing that I've seen locally and throughout the state, really pushing for people to get their cards and doing more card events and come by today. We're doing free cards and stuff like that. I'm seeing more of that again, like in the medical days, which is great. One thing I did propose to the legislators, and it was an interesting idea. I kind of got the fuck off with that. Was either not charging New Mexicans tax at all, or very low tax, and then actually charging out of state people a higher tax, a premium, like the Texans, almost like a tourist tax in that sense when it comes to the cannabis, because that would kind of make up for charging us less or not at all. They didn't really like that. They said that might be illegal, which I don't know. I think I was getting the BS run around. But it's still an idea that I think that could be explored sometime in the future.
I kind of like it. I don't understand why we would say no to that, you know?
I don't either. I mean, we do it with other things, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, like if you don't have a New Mexico's driver's license, you have to pay a premium tax. I'm sorry. Like New Mexico residents pay a lower tax or no tax, and that is how it is. We have a surplus. Remember, we should be able to afford it.
But most people in New Mexico, most residents, and I include myself, you're not directly benefiting from that surplus. Come on.
No, 100%. I agree. And that's what I was saying before is, the state has a surplus. I don't have a surplus. I'm
There
still
you
trying to figure shit out. All of us are. So yeah, the state has a surplus and we'll figure out what goes on with that and everything. But anything else about that incremental tax thing, which is actually a very important bill?
I'd like to dovetail off that, and I apologize if you were going to bring this up separately, but you and I have talked privately how much better New Mexico would be if, in fact, what about if we provided coverage? Medic.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. And I did want to talk about this, Duke. Yes,
But
and we can talk about this, and I'll jump back to because I only have one more bill to talk about. We'll talk about that last. Yes. Do you mind talking about that real quick?
um, the bill has not been introduced. I'm aware that a draft is out there. And if
Mhm.
your listeners are paying attention to it, this is something I hope everybody would get on board. And that is the state simply has to tell insurers, and I mean all of them, the Molinas, the Blue Crosses, the United Healthcare, every health insurer out there, just like you cover prescription drugs, you must cover cannabis. Now imagine the impact that would have.
Huge. That would have national impact, like throughout the whole nation. I'm talking dominoes falling kind of situation. New Mexico, we're known for doing some ballsy things, and people don't even realize it. I think something like this would put us on the map because that's telling the insurance companies a big fu. Like fu. This is the medicine in our state, and you're going to pay for it. And I think that's how it should be. I think the VA should be paying for my cannabis too.
I
Like
think insurers, Chad, would be glad to do it if the state simply just told them, you've got to take care of our people, you have to cover it. Think about how much savings we provide these insurers. Every
mhm.
time a good, caring New Mexico medical patient reaches into their pocket, buys that medication on their own, they saved them some, prescription narcotic.
Yeah.
Should they be rewarded?
I think so. And you know what? This keeps those people off the street too, because their medicine that they rely on is a lot more affordable instead of having to go another route. Because I know people that go to Juarez to pick up medication because they don't need a prescription, or they go to street drugs, or they know a nurse or something. Like they go through wild ways, to get this stuff. So if we made it more available to the local New Mexican, I think we would really benefit because we've seen the numbers of the opioid addictions go down. We've seen alcoholism incidents and everything go down. That's great to hear, for the first time in our history. And to be honest, I think some of it is thanks to cannabis, and I think if the insurance companies pay for it, we'll see even more, and that's great to hear that that bill might be going through, because that's an important bill. And I hope all of you do support that and contact your representatives when it does drop. When it drops, trust me, I'm going to let y'all know. Because that is a very important bill. I think insurance companies definitely need to be paying for cannabis here in New Mexico. And I don't know many people who would disagree with that.
I like the way you said, Chad, that New Mexico, for once in a rare time, would be a national leader.
Yeah,
And it, no, you don't want to say it, but yeah, it is kind of an fu to the insurers, because they know that these patients are making healthy choices, but they don't want to pay for it. As long as
yeah,
you let them get away with it, they're going to do it. As soon as
yeah,
this just tells them it's the law, you've got to build it into your rates. They'll say, "Oh, okay," but somebody has to have the courage to do it and finally say it's the law. And I honestly believe if any state should do it, it's here. If
yeah.
we've got surplus, if we're that progressive, if we're that positive about cannabis, then put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's bad enough that the retailers already pay the 280E. Give us some kind of relief to the patients on the side, because at the end of the day, whatever cost the company occurs goes to the consumer. It trickles right on down. They're not paying for everything. So it'd be better on the consumer at the end of the day too. Once we get this 280E thing situated one day, I don't know when the hell that's going to be, to be honest. But it'd be better. But yeah, this would be
Imagine,
something great.
imagine there's 3,000 licensees, all right? Right now, 3,000 licensees. This is the one time that we could all agree on one thing, okay? There's 55,000 cardholders. They should all be behind it. And you know that enrollment would go from 55 to what? Back to 135,000?
Yeah, I think that was our height, right? That was the numbers, and the highest point was 135,000. Yeah. Yeah, I think it would go even higher than that, because it would be more accessible and accepted. Because you'd see doctors prescribing it more, or excuse me, recommending it more. And you would see just a lot more sales too, probably. But it would be less cost to the consumer and everyone else at the end of it, because insurance would have to pay for it. And it's just, yeah, I hope to see that here soon.
And we'd stop debating the cannabis excise tax. We'd stop debating the gross receipts tax, because it can't be applied to medical services.
Yeah, no, it can't. And to be honest, unfortunately, there's some inspectors around the state that I guess believe the other way and have told someone in Silver City that they had to charge tax for a medical cannabis drink. So I got charged tax. I mean, we run into that too, and that's something I told the CCD about, as well as the lack of this. I wouldn't say transparency, but them like having standardization with these guys. Some of them going off of their opinion versus what is actually law or what's actually in there. So that's something that kind of I really want to fix in the future too. But if we can get this insurance thing knocked out, I mean, this is something that I think we all have been trying to fight for a very long time, even on the VA side. I understand that. I mean, of course, I understand that's a harder thing to do. But this is a first step if we can do this with the insurance side first.
We're always looking for something to get behind, something that makes simple, common sense, easy to understand. Is this not the easiest one out there? Low
Oh,
hanging
it's pretty
fruit.
easy.
We just got to say we want this. And I've been around this game for a long time. This is one that we could succeed at if just a few people stood up and said it more than once.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not a pipe dream. It can happen. I mean, here in New Mexico, worker comp has to reimburse you for your cannabis.
There you
That's
go.
Yeah, there's that too. We have so much, and like when I looked at it and when I found out about that, I said, you know what, it makes sense, because we already have the state Supreme Court ruling that it's medicine. We already have the ruling that it's tax free. We already have workman comp. Like these three things right here. That's kind of like the fall of Rome right here. Next is insurance. That's the next thing that I'm seeing is next is insurance paying for it. And we have these three behind our back. We might have a chance. Is there any lawsuits or anything going on with it alongside with it too that might help?
We do have a federal class action lawsuit forcing the insurers to honor it in New Mexico, but the courts will take you 3 to 5 years. This
Yeah.
makes it automatically statute, and there's no debate.
Yeah, no, I like that. And to be honest, going both routes, see which one happens first, and I think introducing this every year, even if it doesn't pass this year, I think it's the same thing with legalization. It just needs to be introduced every year until we get it changed. But if we can get it passed this year, by all means, please do. So if you guys could, if once this bill drops, like I said, tell your representatives to support this one for sure. Like I said before, there's a few that are already introduced that are important, but this one's going to be very important too, because if we can get some relief to the medical cannabis patients in New Mexico on the paying for their medicine side, that would be great, because there
You
are
know,
some people that really need this.
what would really help, Chad, is not just to wait till it gets dropped. There is a draft bill being passed around. Call your legislator and tell them to be a sponsor. Have every legislator, or as many legislators as possible, to sign on to the bill.
100%. I agree. You heard it from myself too, and myself that, yeah, please. I mean, I don't care who you are. I don't on what side of the arguments you've been in the industry, open license, closed license, whatever. I think we can all agree on this, that the insurance companies need to pay. So yeah, well, thank you for that, Duke. That's a very important piece that I'm glad you brought up. I was going to bring up later. I hope that the bill does get dropped soon, and I hope it does pass. But we'll see, and I'll keep everybody updated. Before we move on to our final little topic, I want to update everybody to SB 152, because this one, in a sense, I don't want to pass, and I don't really see passing either, but it still has a chance. It's the one where it allows the counties to apply for a 2-year pause without having any kind of limit, so they can just keep applying for it, every 2 years and keep it going. For me, this doesn't really fix anything. All this does is put that band-aid over an infected wound and hope for the best. And then at the end of the day, you end up with air pockets of New Mexico where it's monopolized, and pockets of New Mexico where, when it was monopolized during the medical days, it's remonopolized, or et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what's your take on this, Bill?
I'm with you on that. We left the licenses open, and it's tough for me too to absorb that. It is what it is, but it was to narrow, really to stop narrow-minded people in certain counties saying no, no, no. If the law says they can go, a grower can go wherever the grower wants. A retail within certain limitations can go to any community. That prevented certain towns, counties retaliating against you because they were extremely conservative. If you open that up, if they open it back up, it's not going to stop. It's going to
No.
create a new wave of, here's our opportunity to slap the heck out of these people and let's shut these things down. That's the pendulum swinging too much to the other side. So I'm with you. Please do not pass that bill.
Yeah. Please contact your representatives and tell them this is not a very friendly bill to the industry, or just to the cannabis community in general. Because during the medical days, I mean, if you guys weren't here, there was certain parts of the state that just weren't friendly at all when it came to cannabis. You were a medical holder and you'll still get harassed. I mean, I don't know how many times the police harassed me for just being a medical cannabis patient, driving to Alamogordo, even at the Elephant Butte. I got harassed a lot. Luckily, I had the card, and that did legally save me legally. But at the same time, I had to go through that bullshit in the first place, just for the fact that they had a weird bias on cannabis. You know what I mean? So we could run into that issue with this too. And that's just like that enforcement bill. We could be targeting the wrong people. And the wrong people, I mean by the wrong areas, closing down. And I get it. They're trying to tackle this saturation thing, but closing licenses is never going to, go fix something like that. You just create monopolies. And then, one person controls one area. And, Duke, you and I have had that conversation before, that this pie is so big that, it's going to be impossible one person eat all the crumbs, and all the pieces of the pie. There's enough for everybody. And we've proven that. I mean, look at Sunland Park. There's all kinds of craziness going on down there. Yeah, yeah, it's another
Oh
world. There's a
yeah,
reason why I call it Little Dubai.
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane down there. Well, I appreciate you joining me on these conversations, and we'll be down to the last one. I really want to talk about this one because I've been trying to get these guys on the show for over like 2 years, and Gino can probably attest to that. I talk about them all the time. Bright Green. Let's talk about Bright Green real quick. So, who is Bright Green, or what are they really about?
I'll probably get sued for saying this, but to me, it's outright market manipulation, if not possibly fraud.
Yeah.
This we're going to take over this abandoned greenhouse outside of Grants. They said we're going to raise all this money. We're going to be a DEA approved research facility, and the stock has collapsed from, I think, $12 a share down to, I think this morning or this afternoon it traded at 4 cents.
It
So
was like at 8 the last time I checked. Ooh, that's worse.
I hate to be like that again. And you say, oh, is it sour grapes? No, I just don't like people being taken advantage of. I don't like them knowing that it's the middle of New Mexico and these East Coast investors won't know what's here. It just smells bad, looks bad, and isn't real. So the
Yeah.
good news is I think they are on their last breath. The stock is plummeted. They got shareholder litigation. The officers have quit. I think we're going to find out, you know, looks like shit, smells like shit. Guess what?
Yeah, and I've tried to get a hold of them many times to even official media requests, all that stuff. Never hear anything back. I give them a call. I'm annoying and tag them on socials all the time. You know how I can be. So nothing yet. They don't want to talk to anybody.
Of
The
course.
only way I get updates is when I look on their website and I get the CEO updates and I see news articles. Then I find out, oh, they've been all over the Middle East and Asia looking for investors, and they're trying to figure out other countries they can sell peyote to and cannabis and psilocybin to, all the while the poor producers over here are getting harassed by the damn border patrol. And these guys are federally legal entity. We don't even know who they are, how they're going to benefit New Mexico, other than just being there and being one of the very few federally legal producers of drugs in the nation when it comes to like natural medicine remedy. They're also applying for other schedule 1 and 2 substances, I guess. I don't know how. I think they got a couple of them. I don't know if they got all of them. But we'll see what happens. But it's kind of shady. Have you been able to get any contact with them really any like recently at all either?
I've sent them emails, I've placed phone calls. I've actually sent employees out there to camp out, take pictures, climb up over the fence, show me what they really got. And I will tell you, it will I will put it this way so no one sues me. It would be very difficult to convince me that it's not a scam. Because from all looks right now, it looks to be fake, looks to be market manipulation, looks to be a pump and dump. And
Yeah,
so, we don't need that in New Mexico. We
yeah.
have enough challenges being in this state. We're a stagnant state in some ways. We don't need crap like that. We need to kind of keep ourselves clean, and that kind of stuff we shouldn't allow in this market.
Yeah, I agree. And it's unfortunate that this is happening. It would be really nice if they'd join the community and kind of talk with us a little bit and kind of figure out some things, but we're not hearing anything. And from what I've seen too, they haven't grown a single cannabis plant yet, or anything at all. They've got all this funding, this huge land, these greenhouses, and not one single plant has been grown. So that's alarming. They've been there for what, 3 years now, almost 4 years,
Almost
and
4 years, Dad. You are 100% correct. Not one single plant,
yeah.
not even a tumbleweed.
Yeah, if I had a license in New Mexico and I didn't grow one single plant, yeah, I was trying to operate like that, I'd probably get shut down, or the DEA would become, pay me a visit. So we'll see what happens in the future with them. And I appreciate you updating me on it, because I had no clue you knew more about them. I don't know why I didn't ask you before, because I should have known that you were doing your due diligence with them too. But you went a little further than me, and I appreciate that. Because I was curious myself, and I wanted to go by when I did the town hall in Farmington, but we didn't have enough time, and didn't get to go by. But maybe I will one day. We'll see. Maybe I'll go, bang on the fence or some shit and see if someone comes out. But we'll see. And only time will tell. I really appreciate you joining me today, Duke. It was last minute. I know you had something else to do beforehand, but I appreciate it. We'll see what happens with these bills. I can't wait to see that insurance bill drop. We'll see if we can get them to pay for it, and we'll see what happens with this whole mess with these bills, and getting some enforcement here in the state and trying to fix some of our issues, because we got a lot.
Very good, Chad. I appreciate your time again.
I appreciate you, Duke, and I'll talk to you later.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right, shoots. All right, guys. See you later. Shoots.